Vivian is the first ever Ether Anomaly agent to be released, and of course there are a few things everyone wants to know. How do I play her? How do I build her? And more importantly, should I pull for her? Well, as always, today I'll be answering all these questions and more, but before we go further, I'd like to first remind you all that the footage from this video will be from the creator beta server, so things are subject to change. However, with this out of the way, let's break down everything you need to know to play Vivian. Vivian's gameplay revolves around her identity as a semi-off-field anomaly DPS support hybrid. That's a mouthful. She performs best by generating feathers, leaving the field, and then activating transformed feathers through other agents, dealing massive anomaly damage, and activating her unique mechanic known as a bloom. To give more context, Vivian focuses on generating initial feathers known as flight feathers, and then converting said feathers to guard feathers, which will help her team significantly. In addition to this, her attacks deal bonus anomaly damage when enemies are affected by anomalies, but once she generates flight feathers, this allows her to enter the fluttering frog state. This fluttering frog or flying state is where she deals strong ether damage and converts flight feathers to guard feathers, and these guard feathers enable another attack known as feather bloom. This is a big reason for why she performs very well alongside other anomaly agents, but to add to this, she also has access to the noblewoman state, and this form enhances her mobility and survivability with auto dodges while also allowing her to transition smoothly into the fluttering frog state for her big burst damage. Overall, you could compare Vivian's playstyle to that of Bernice, where she aims to generate her unique resources and swap off field once she can support her fellow anomaly agents. Now, before we break down Vivian's abilities, let's talk about the four major parts of her kit. The first is the noblewoman state. This is an enhanced form Vivian enters after performing certain abilities like a perfect dodge, the fourth hit of her feathered strike combo, or a quick assist. While in the noblewoman form, Vivian also gains access to noblewoman waltz, and this grants her flight feathers and allows her to enter into the fluttering frog state. On that note, let's talk about the fluttering frog state, as this is another very important mechanic for Vivian. To put it simply, the fluttering or flying state is Vivian's high damage mode, activated by consuming flight feathers or through other means like using noblewoman waltz while flight feathers are available. In this state, she can use suspension, which is a powerful ether AoE that consumes all flight feathers and then converts them into guard feathers. To be clear, this form slash state can be entered independently or after certain moves like her ultimate, EX special attack, or assist follow-up, but the key takeaway here is that while in fluttering frog, she can actually activate suspension even while being switched out, and this is actually one of Vivian's best tricks to optimize her. Next, let's talk about Vivian's feathers. To start things off, flight feathers are used to enter the fluttering frog state. However, these feathers become more useful when she converts them to guard feathers as opposed to just flight ones. In regards to how she gains these flight feathers though, Vivian gains 2 from entering the battlefield, 5 from using her ultimate, 2 from her assist follow-up, 2 from using her chain attack, and 3 from using her EX special. Now let's address guard feathers, as they're important for a few reasons. First, it allows her to activate feather bloom when teammates apply anomalies or use EX special attacks using guard feathers. But second, if feather bloom hits a target that is suffering from an ether, electric, fire, physical, or ice anomaly specifically, it'll activate Vivian's a bloom mechanic, dealing additional attribute anomaly damage. This is a major part of Vivian's kit, and this scales specifically off of the anomaly proficiency of the original anomaly damage. But as a side note to the guard feathers, in case you were wondering, you can actually store up to 5, but it doesn't mean that you need to use all 5 at the same time. Now, with these mechanics as the foundation of her kit, let's now talk about her core passive and additional ability. Vivian's core passive deals with feather bloom. As previously mentioned, when Vivian's feather bloom attack or fluttering frog suspension hits a target affected by any attribute anomaly, it inflicts Vivian's prophecy, dealing continuous ether damage that can trigger additional anomaly effects. Furthermore, if feather bloom hits a specific anomaly like ether, electric, fire, physical, or ice, it activates Vivian's a bloom mechanic as previously mentioned, which of course scales off of anomaly proficiency. Finally, in terms of pre to early gameplay impact, Vivian gains access to 2 flight feathers upon entering the battlefield for the first time. Now let's address Vivian's additional ability, Prophetic Tears. This becomes active for Vivian when another character in the squad is either an anomaly agent or shares the same attribute as Vivian. When this condition is satisfied, however, every time a squad member applies an attribute anomaly to an enemy, Vivian automatically consumes 1 guard feather to launch her basic attack, Feather Bloom, at a target. This can be triggered once every half second, and in addition to this, all members of the team gain a 12% increase in corruption damage, while disorders created by corruption also gain a 12% increase too. In regards to her basic attack abilities, Vivian has 4 distinct skills that each have their own value. Feather Strike is her generic 4-hit combo dealing physical and ether damage, but this ability is otherwise pretty standard. That said, it does also allow her to enter enter the noblewoman state after the 4th hit, but once in the noblewoman state, performing a basic attack grants her Vivian's second basic attack ability known as Noblewoman Waltz. This deals ether damage, restores 1 flight feather, and can trigger the fluttering frog state if feathers are available, but once in the fluttering frog state, performing a basic attack will then activate suspension. As mentioned earlier, suspension is Vivian's special basic attack that deals AoE ether damage, consumes all flight feathers, and grants guard feathers. Next, let's talk about her special attack. Vivian's EX special attack is straightforward. It deals damage while also granting 3 flight feathers. However, before we go any further, a common feature in Vivian's kit is the ability for Vivian to enter into the flying state after using an ability. And for Vivian's EX special attack, this is no different. This ability also automatically sends Vivian into the fluttering frog state, meaning that Vivian can use her EX special attack and immediately swap to another agent as well, minimizing the amount of time that she needs to spend in an otherwise long animation. Vivian's assists are pretty standard, but it does technically have 2 special features attached to it. The first is that her quick assist allows her to quickly enter the noblewoman state, and to add to this, the second is that her assist follow-up will generate 2 flight feathers and send Vivian into the fluttering frog state, all of which contributes to Vivian's ideal game plan. Next, let's talk about Vivian's dodge skills. First, it is worth mentioning that while Vivian's dodge abilities are standard, her dodge counter will allow her to enter into the noblewoman state, which again can then transition her into the fluttering frog state. Additionally, when Vivian is in the noblewoman state, it is also worth knowing that she can automatically dodge a single time, resetting the next time she enters this form. Vivian's chain attack is pretty unnoteworthy outside of providing her with 2 flight feathers, but like with other abilities, it does allow her to enter into the fluttering frog state. Finally, though her ultimate is a decent damage skill, the more important aspect of this ability are the 5 flight feathers it provides you, in addition to allowing her to enter the flying state. Skill priority wise, Vivian's core passive is truly the most important among her abilities, but after this, prioritizing her basic, EX special attack, and assist skills at similar levels will be ideal. To end things off, her dodge abilities are truthfully less useful than you'd expect, so upgrading this last is fine. Before we break down Vivian's combos, I first want to say that Vivian's kit reminds me of a mix between Bernice and Yanagi, where Vivian can apply a lot of pressure off field, but still wants to wait for an ally to apply an anomaly first before she truly shines. That said, here's what to keep in mind when playing Vivian. First, generating and converting feathers to guard feathers should be your ultimate goal. However, as a reminder, Vivian does need to hit an enemy affected by an anomaly first before she can activate a bloom. With this, here's the main combo that Vivian can use to maximize the amount of feathers gathered in combat and activate guard feathers. First, perform a defensive assist with Vivian, continue this with her assist follow-up attack, use her EX special attack afterward, and then swap immediately while allowing Vivian to perform her animations automatically. With this combo, Vivian gathers 5 guard feathers and sets up her next ally to use them whenever appropriate, and you don't even have to sit through the long animation of suspension. Now, while this works when Vivian has 0 feathers, she does start out with 2 when entering the battlefield for the first time. As a result, another possible combo for players to maximize Vivian is to simply use an EX special attack and then swap off to her allies. Now, I won't go too much further than this as there are dozens of scenarios where things can change, but I just want to mention how important it is to apply anomaly before activating a bloom. While it is somewhat quick and easy to generate guard feathers with Vivian, you should only be using / converting them once you've spent time on another ally applying anomaly on an enemy. Without this, Vivian will waste feathers, not activate a bloom, and instead she will lose an insane amount of damage, especially on characters like Jane, where each bloom proc that you activate can reach upwards of 300 or even 400,000 damage. On a final note, it should be known that Vivian doesn't always need to generate 5 feathers before swapping to another agent, and rather activating a bloom as soon as possible once an enemy has anomaly applied to them will be ideal. That said, using her chain attack when possible and making sure not to overcap her ultimate will also help in clearing content faster. For W engine choices, Vivian's signature is easily her best option, which is a good and bad thing. But to remind you all of a significant change that's coming in 1.7, Time Weaver's passive effect is actually being fixed. Up until this point, despite this effect saying it would only increase electric anomaly buildup rate, it had actually affected and increased all elemental anomaly buildup rates instead. Unfortunately though, this will no longer be the case and consequently makes Time Weaver a much worse option for her. And actually, as a direct result of this, Vivian's second best option will therefore be Weeping Gemini in most cases. However, Gemini is only 12 to 14% worse than her signature depending on the team composition, so this is honestly not bad and definitely Vivian's best alternative choice. Now, in case you guys were curious though, you could technically use something like Fusion Compiler or Electro Lip Gloss on Vivian, but given the difficulty of either getting a single copy of Fusion Compiler or getting Lip Gloss to rank 5, I'd highly recommend sticking to Gemini. Now, with everything laid out, my clear recommendation recommendation for Vivian is to use Weeping Gemini if you don't pull for her signature, but in case you are unsure about pulling for her signature, here's what you can consider instead. Although the W Engine's passive does benefit Ether Anomaly characters the most, it's hard to ignore the universal 90 Anomaly proficiency alongside the 40% increase to Anomaly buildup. And given the fact that most Anomaly characters in ZenlessZoneZero gain immense value from having increased Anomaly buildup rate, this is a pretty universal W Engine with great stats. Me personally though, I will be pulling for this W Engine in case I need an alternative to others for my future Anomaly characters, but choose responsibly for yourself. Build-wise, Vivian's best set is Phaethon's Melody, as it was clearly designed for her, but Freedom Blues or even something like Swing Jazz can also be usable alternatives until you have a proper Phaethon set. However, it is incredibly clear that Zenless tied this set to Vivian given how well she uses it. As a result, even if you were to use something like 4-piece Freedom Blues, on average this is anywhere between a 5 to 10% loss in DPS, even if you're pairing her with another Ether agent. Now in terms of her 2-piece set, an Anomaly providing effect like Chaos Jazz or Freedom Blues will actually do better in most cases than any other alternatives, but this is because Vivian scales better with raw anomalies specifically as opposed to any other stat. Let's move on to stats now though. Vivian's best main stat pairing is 4th slot Anomaly proficiency, 5th slot Ether damage, and 6th slot Anomaly mastery. However, her 6th slot can be swapped to attack percent depending on who you pair with her. That said, this can also sometimes be the case with her 5th slot and attack percent too, depending on how many damage percent buffs she has in her team. Now before we go further, the previously mentioned Anomaly proficiency, Ether damage, and Anomaly mastery is still extremely versatile and strong regardless of the team composition, so despite all that I've said, it is still what I would recommend. Stat line wise, aiming for anywhere between 375 and 400 Anomaly proficiency is your goal. However, making sure to get 198 Anomaly mastery if you're using a 6-slot AM piece is important too. Attack wise, this can fluctuate from anywhere between 2300 and 2600, but ultimately getting at least a single roll of attack percent and a single roll of Anomaly proficiency should be your goal on every piece when possible. With all this, my recommendation for Vivian's build is the following: 4-piece Phaethon's Melody, 2-piece Freedom Blues, 4th slot Anomaly proficiency, 5th slot Ether damage, 6th slot Anomaly mastery, and 400 Anomaly proficiency alongside 198 Anomaly mastery and 2500 attack. Let's talk about Vivian's Mindscapes now though. Her first Mindscape is simply more damage and does add some quality of life as it provides you with an increased rate of generating feathers. Overall though, calculations currently show that this is a decent increase in damage, but nothing too crazy. Her second Mindscape, however, is extremely powerful with it specifically buffing Jane by almost 35 to 40% in individual performance. Now, in addition to the clear value that this Mindscape provides to Vivian with her Anomaly build-up increase, the buffs to a bloom with this Mindscape make it incredible for anyone pairing Vivian with characters who can make use of it. Her fourth Mindscape is also pretty strong as it provides her with 5 guard feathers at the start of combat, but while this does give Vivian's team a powerful start to the match, it is still limited by Vivian's bloom requirements. However, though the average 15 to 20% value that it provides in addition to guaranteeing crits is decent, this shouldn't be your sign to build crit Vivian. Finally, her sixth Mindscape is easily the most insane of them all, and this is because it boosts her damage by differing amounts depending on the team lineup, but the results paint a clear picture. It sends damage numbers to the millions, which is absolutely crazy. To keep things transparent though, this is honestly uncharted territory as the damage increase is so extreme and health bars are vanishing so quickly that calling it anything less than absurd would honestly be dishonest. Now let's talk about Vivian's teams. I did make a whole dedicated video to testing every Vivian lineup possible, but for this video I wanted to include a summarized version of my findings instead. To start things off, my testing for this Vivian teams video did span several Shiyu defenses, deadly assaults, and notorious hunts among other various locations for testing, but as usual, certain fights or encounters were less fair than others for the sake of neutrality. Because of this, use discretion when interpreting the results and findings that I have for you today. But moving along, let's now talk about the takeaways from my Vivian testing. To start, Vivian's best partner is Astra like usual, but this time it's not just because of her buffs. Rather, Astra's ability to provide constant quick assists make her one of the best pairings for Vivian, especially given how many feathers she can generate as a result of it. However, as usual, once again, I decided to find non-Astra or Miyabi related characters to showcase her strength, and here's what I found. In terms of performance, Miyabi Lucy Vivian was the clear standout among non-Astra teams, but even excluding Miyabi, Yanagi Nicole Vivian and Bernice Nicole Vivian had great showings too. Their impressive performance was for multiple reasons, including Nicole's grouping capabilities, but in addition to this, the ability to constantly assist swap with a character like Nicole felt easier given her short animations. Moving along, it was also clear that Yanagi and Bernice were some of the best non-Miyabi DPS to pair with Vivian just based off of clear time times. However, then I decided to test Jane, who absolutely smashed her old previous clear time records once Vivian was paired with her. To be clear though, Jane did feel best when paired with Astra specifically, as her ability to minimize time spent on field led to improved deadly assault scores and overall clear times. However, as usual, most teams with Astra will feel amazing, but despite this, it is still worth mentioning that Vivian alone improved Jane's overall performance by a significant amount across all her teams, regardless if she had Astra or not. Now on that note, what I actually found to be the most interesting about Vivian is just how much better she made the older anomaly characters feel when paired with her. To be more specific, Piper, Grace, and Jane especially all felt much stronger when Vivian had her Bloom procs paired with her, and personally, I think buffing older characters is pretty cool. And now finally, let's talk about the most important question of all: is Vivian actually worth pulling for? Now, like always, this question has a lot to factor in, so I offer you the following instead to help you with this decision. Vivian is one of the easier characters that ZenlessZoneZero has released, and to add to this, she provides an amazing amount of damage to every anomaly character, new or old. In addition to this, she's the first ever Ether anomaly agent released, and with it, she also does provide an amazing amount of ether damage should you master her Bloom system. Something worth noting about Vivian as well is that she does frequently return back on field, with her needing to generate more feathers, so in case you weren't a fan of agents having low screen time, she does have a healthy mix of both so that you can still see her while getting to play your favorite main DPS. Beyond this, I do feel that Vivian's only two flaws are technically the following. First, she does feel specifically tied to anomaly agents, and this can feel bad if you're someone who likes to play attack agents, but in addition to this, she doesn't also play the role of a main DPS super well if that's your other intention. Now that said, these flaws are realistically not that important in the same way that other characters have weaknesses, so do with this what you will. With this though, I believe Vivian is a very versatile anomaly agent and can make all anomaly characters find success. Even without her signature, she also does have strong showings with her ideal team lineups, and when paired and played properly, she is easily one of the strongest anomaly characters in the game. As a result, I personally recommend pulling for Vivian, especially if you want to make characters like Grace, Jane, or Piper work better, but as always, spend responsibly as this is just a gacha game. That's going to be it for today's video though, guys. Hope you enjoyed or learned something. Leave a comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.